Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She stepped over my suitcase like it wasn't even there. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't ask why it was packed. Just walked past it with a mug in her hand and said, "You forgot your razor." Not, "Why are you leaving?" Not, "Can we talk?" Just that, like I was late for a meeting, not walking out of a life. This all started with a stupid question. I asked her, "Do you even care when I walk into a room anymore?" She didn't answer right away. Just stared at her phone like it had a better personality than me. Then she said it calmly, like she was reading a weather report. "If you want attention, deserve it first." That sentence didn't just hurt. It settled in my chest like a brick. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just nodded and went upstairs to fold the last of my clothes. She didn't follow me. She turned up the TV. I had supported her through 3 failed jobs, 1 fitness brand idea, and 6 months of therapy she said she didn't need. But I did. And now I was being told to earn attention. Cool. Then she can earn support too. The next morning I stopped paying the rent. It's under my name. She never noticed. I canceled the shared credit card. She didn't ask. She kept coming home late. Her eyes sparkled in ways they hadn't around me in years. She hummed while brushing her hair, but never once looked me in the eye. One evening I watched from the upstairs window as she stepped out of a black SUV she had never mentioned. She stood at the curb, smiled back into the car, and waved. That smile, it wasn't for me. It hadn't been for a long time. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I followed her, not far, just 2 blocks down. She walked into a tiny Mediterranean place that neither of us had ever been to. She sat by the window, pulled out her phone, and typed something fast. Then a man joined her, stylish, confident. He leaned in like he already knew what her perfume tasted like, and she laughed, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard since our honeymoon. She told me to deserve her attention, but the whole time, it was already sold to someone else. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there with my back to her, listening to the rhythmic tapping of her fingers on her phone. Whatever she was typing made her exhale with that soft half laugh that used to be mine. She thought I was asleep. I wasn't. I hadn't really slept in months. You don't sleep when your heart is still in the room, wide awake, trying to figure out when exactly it stopped being safe there. Around 2 a.m., she went to the bathroom. I waited until I heard the faucet run. That was my window. Her laptop was open on the ottoman, the screen dim but not locked. Abbott. She always assumed I wouldn't touch her stuff, and until that night she was right. Her password was still my birthday. The irony, that was the last time she had planned anything around me. I opened her messages first. I didn't recognize the name. Nathan R. No hearts, no saved pictures. Clean. But there it was, a digital trail of inside jokes, late-night check-ins, and coded plans. Tell him you're working this Saturday. Wear that black one. You know what it does to me. You looked incredible tonight. Still taste you. I stared at those words like they were carved into stone. I wasn't even shocked. What hit me more was how normal it seemed for her, like she had an entire world she kept warm while I was freezing on the other side of the door. The faucet turned off. I closed the lid and sat back on the couch just as she came out. She looked at me startled. "Can't sleep?" I shook my head. "Nah, just thinking." She gave me a small smile, the kind strangers exchange in passing, and walked right past me. No kiss, no curiosity, just silence, like we were roommates splitting rent. The next morning I acted normal. Poured her coffee, asked about her day ahead. She barely looked up. "Just calls, nothing interesting." Sure, nothing interesting except for Nathan. I called out of work. I needed space. Not from her, from my own denial. By noon I was parked outside the Mediterranean restaurant again. Not stalking, confirming I needed one more push. One more undeniable truth before I broke everything. At 12:42 she arrived. At 12:47 so did he. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. The way he leaned in and she bit her lip while laughing. That told me everything. They were rehearsed, comfortable. This wasn't new. This wasn't temptation. This was routine. I took a photo. Just one. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. As I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, a notification buzzed on my phone. It was from our shared cloud folder. a calendar invite. Marcia and Heron anniversary dinner. She had sent it last month. That same night, she had dinner with Nathan instead. She hadn't canceled it. She just never showed up. So tell me, how exactly do you deserve someone's attention when they've already replaced you in their calendar? By the time she walked through the door that evening, I had already deleted the calendar reminder from both our phones. She wouldn't notice. She didn't check shared stuff anymore. Not photos, not events, not grocery lists. We used to plan everything together. Now we lived in parallel timelines and I was the only one still glancing sideways. She kicked off her heels and said, "Today was brutal." I watched her pull off that blazer like it was a costume. I almost asked, "What role did you play today, Marcia? Beautiful wife or desirable mistress?" But I stayed quiet, not out of fear, out of strategy. I needed to know what she would say without prompting, and she didn't disappoint. "Conference call with the West Coast ran long," she said, rubbing her neck with the same hand that had been resting on Nathan's arm earlier. "You wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes listening to those people." I nodded like I cared. Sounds rough. She didn't notice the bitterness under the words. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. "That was our new dynamic," she lied. And I let her, but only for now. She went to shower. I stayed on the couch scrolling through the photo I took. Her face was brighter in that picture than it had been around me in years. She used to smile like that with me, only me. Now she gave it away for free over shawarma and secrets. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I poured myself a drink, not to forget, to focus. I had to think clearly without the fog of emotion clouding my next step. Revenge wasn't my goal. I wasn't going to key his car or expose her to friends and family. I wasn't even sure I wanted a divorce. What I wanted, and I say this knowing it sounds pathetic, was acknowledgement. I wanted her to see what she had done, to say it, to look at me and admit, without filters or half-truths, that she had chosen someone else while still sleeping in our bed. The next morning, I started preparing my own exit. I met with the bank, quietly separated our savings. She'd notice eventually, but by then, I'd be gone. I copied all her messages with Nathan and emailed them to myself from her laptop, then deleted the sent mail. I took photos of receipts, calendar events, even the lipstick-stained coffee cup I found in the backseat of our car. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted her to lie again. I needed her to do it willingly to see how easily it came. So I waited. That evening, I told her I booked us a weekend away. Just the two of us. A cabin, no phones, no distractions, just nature, wine, and us. Whatever that still meant. She looked surprised. "Seriously?" I nodded. "I thought we needed this." "You've seemed stressed," she blinked. "Yeah, maybe that's a good idea, but I saw it then. Hesitation, a flicker of doubt, not guilt, logistics." She wasn't wondering if she should say yes. She was wondering how to fit it between her next date with him. I smiled and kissed her cheek. "We leave Friday. Let's see how she plans to explain that to Nathan." The night before the trip, she packed in silence. Normally, she'd throw clothes into her suitcase like a teenager running late for school. But this time, she was methodical, deliberate. She kept checking her phone quickly, locking it when I walked past. I counted the taps. 3, same pattern. That's how she silenced notifications. She wasn't texting me, and she definitely wasn't excited. When we hit the road the next morning, she was different. Overly polite, a bit too cheerful. She played a playlist she hadn't touched in years. Our old road trip songs, back when we used to laugh over fast food wrappers and argue over gas station snacks. Now it felt like she was performing a memory, not living it. The cabin was 2 hours away, nestled in a pine-scented pocket of nowhere. I chose it precisely because there was no signal, no Wi-Fi, no easy escape. When we pulled up, she looked around and said, "Wow, it's quiet." "Yeah," I replied. "That's the point." The first few hours were normal enough. We unpacked, ate, sat by the fireplace. She brought a book she didn't open. I brought questions I didn't ask. Yet that evening, I poured wine and handed her a glass. She accepted it with a tight smile. I could feel the unease in her shoulders, the restless tapping of her foot against the rug. She wasn't relaxed. She was calculating. "Everything okay?" I asked, watching her closely. She hesitated. "Yeah, just work stress, I guess. Being unplugged is weird." I tilted my head. No one's expecting you tonight. She froze for a split second so fast the average husband would have missed it. But I wasn't average anymore. I was watching every detail. She forced a laugh. No, why would anyone expect me? I let the silence hang before casually replying. I just figured someone might wonder where you are, like your boss or Nathan. Her entire body stiffened. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me with a look I hadn't seen in years. Pure, raw panic. Who? She whispered. I leaned back in my chair, sipped my wine, and said nothing. She stood up slowly, setting her glass down with shaking fingers. Heron, what are you talking about? Now it was my turn to perform. I gave her the same hollow smile she'd been handing me for months. Nothing. Just a name that popped up when I was fixing your laptop. Maybe an email or a dinner reservation. Funny how your digital trail tells a better story than you do? She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. Instead, she said the one thing I wasn't prepared for. You weren't supposed to find out like this. I laughed genuinely. Oh, there was a better way to discover my wife's got a second life. Her eyes welled up, but it wasn't regret. It was fear. Not of losing me, but of losing the control she thought she had. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. No, you didn't want to, I said. Big difference. She sank into the couch, covering her face. For the first time, she looked like the one without the plan. I sat across from her, elbows on my knees. You told me to deserve your attention. Well, here we are. Earn my forgiveness. She didn't say a word because she couldn't. She spent the night curled up on the far edge of the bed, facing the wall like it offered her an escape. I didn't touch her. I didn't speak. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how many nights I'd shared a bed with a stranger who'd memorized all my vulnerabilities. She used to ask me what scared me most. Back then I said, losing you? I think she liked that answer. It gave her something to dangle. In the morning, she acted like the night before hadn't happened. She made coffee like always, except this time, she didn't bring me a cup. I didn't ask for one either. I just watched her. The slight tremble in her hands, the way she avoided eye contact. The silence that wasn't peaceful anymore, just hollow. When I sat across from her at the little pinewood table, she finally broke. What do you want me to say, Harlan? That I messed up? That I'm a terrible person? I didn't answer. Not yet, she continued, her voice cracking in places she probably didn't expect. I didn't plan it. Okay, I was lonely. You were always just there, like wallpaper, reliable, predictable, and I needed to feel something again. There it was, the truth dressed up in self-pity, not an apology, not remorse, just justification. And all I could do was nod like I understood. Maybe I did, but understanding doesn't mean excusing. I reached into my jacket and slid a small envelope across the table. She stared at it, hesitant, like it might burn her fingers. What's this? Open it. Inside were printed screenshots, messages, restaurant bills, a calendar invite with the words "Trip with N" highlighted. Her face went pale as she flipped through each one. You've been tracking me? She snapped, her voice sharp, now defensive. No, I've been paying attention, which is what you told me to do, right? Deserve your attention first. I did that, and this is what I got. She stood up, the chair scraping the floor hard. You invaded my privacy. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Your privacy. You lost the right to call it that the moment you turned our marriage into a cover story. She looked ready to scream, but instead she stormed out of the cabin, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. I didn't follow her. I wanted her to sit with it. The cold, the woods, the echo of her own footsteps. 20 minutes later, she came back in, quiet, shaken. You've shown all of this to someone, she asked, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Not yet. Tears welled in her eyes. But again, they weren't for me. They were for her reputation, her comfort, her double life that now hung by a thread I held. So what happens now? She whispered. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and tossed her phone on the table. What happens now? That depends on you. You've got until we get home to decide what truth you're ready to live with and which version of yourself you're ready to face. She didn't move, just stared at her reflection in the darkened screen of her phone. Like she didn't recognize the woman looking back. The drive back was dead silent. She didn't even try to break it. She just stared out the passenger window with her arms crossed like a teenager being forced home from summer camp. I could feel her breathing heavier each time my phone buzzed in the cup holder, but she never asked who it was. She already knew it wasn't Nathan. It was never Nathan. I hadn't reached out to him yet. She probably thought I would by now, that I'd rage text him screenshots and empty threats, maybe even crash whatever fantasy world they built together. But I didn't, because this wasn't about him. It was about her and how she'd managed to rewrite our entire marriage in her head while expecting me to fund the sequel. When we got home, she didn't unpack. She didn't ask to talk. She just went straight to the bedroom and shut the door. I heard the click of the lock. Classic move. That tiny mechanism, like it could shield her from consequences. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room with Finley, our dog, curled up beside me, the only soul in the house who hadn't lied to me. Around 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and began writing a letter. Not to her, to me. It wasn't some sappy diary entry or long-winded vent. It was a plan, simple, clean. I listed everything. A list of shared accounts I'd already separated. A breakdown of what she contributed in the past year. Barely anything. A schedule of where I'd be staying next month. Not far, just not here. A note that said, "If you want to fight, I'll see you in court. If you want peace, I'll see you at the lawyer's office." By morning, I printed it, folded it neatly, and placed it on her nightstand. She didn't mention it that day. Not when she came out of the room, not over coffee, not during her third work call of the afternoon. But I knew she read it. I saw the envelope had been opened, and I saw how she avoided looking at me like I was radioactive. That evening, I took it a step further. "Marcia," I said quietly, "if there's anything you still want to say it tonight, because tomorrow, I'm not the same man you've been lying to." She hesitated, like she was searching for the right angle, the one that might still work. "You're not blameless in this," she whispered, her voice trembling with rehearsed vulnerability. "I never said I was," I replied, "but I didn't betray you. I didn't pretend you didn't exist while building a second life." She sat down across from me at the table, the same table where we used to plan our future. Now it was just a battlefield in disguise. "I didn't plan to fall for him," she said, tears threatening the corners of her eyes. "And I didn't plan to stop loving you," I shot back. "But here we are." She looked up at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. "What do you want me to do?" I leaned in, calm but clear. "Admit it out loud without excuses. No half-truths. I want to hear you say what you did. Not for closure, for honesty." She stared at me for what felt like hours, and then she said it. "I cheated on you, Heron. I lied. I disrespected you, and I kept doing it because you never stopped being kind to me. That made it easier." And just like that, the room went still. Not peaceful, just still. Because honesty doesn't fix everything, but it removes all doubt. The morning after her confession, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. I walked through the kitchen and could still smell her perfume clinging to the hallway, mixed with the bitterness of burnt coffee. She was already gone physically, emotionally, maybe permanently. She hadn't taken her things yet, but mentally she'd moved out months ago. I just didn't want to see it until now. I opened the fridge. Her yogurt still sat on the top shelf, untouched. She always bought the raspberry ones and then forgot about them. That used to annoy me. Now staring at them, it just felt like a monument to how much I'd let slide. That day I didn't go to work. I didn't text anyone. I took a trash bag and started clearing space. Not out of rage, but necessity. Anything that reminded me of our fake routines went in the bag. Her spa coupons, the love notes she never wrote but kept from others. Even the mug that said, "Best wife ever," the one I'd bought when I was still trying to make her smile. All of it gone. Midway through cleaning, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She had left it there, maybe on purpose. Maybe it was a test, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I glanced at the screen. A new message from Nathan. "You okay? You haven't responded since yesterday." He didn't freak out, did he? I didn't touch it. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message, letting it burn itself into my mind. He sounded worried. Not because he was scared of me, but because he knew he mattered more to her. Now the worst part, he probably wasn't wrong. That evening she came home. Not quietly, not guilty, just tired. She looked around the house and noticed what was missing. Her framed quotes, her scented candles, the little decorative bowl where she used to dump her jewelry. She turned to me, confused. "You cleaned?" she asked, almost like it was an accusation. "I reset," I replied flatly. She paused. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I tilted my head. "You said I was wallpaper. Guess I peeled off." She sighed and sat down. "So what happens now? Do you want to end it? Like officially?" I took a long breath. "No, I don't want to end it. I want you to." Her face contorted. "What?" "I want you to decide what you're willing to lose, because I already know what I lost. I lost the version of you who used to choose me. Now you choose secrecy. You choose him. So go ahead. Choose again. But this time, no. There's no do-over." She didn't respond. She just sat there, blinking, like someone who realized the door they kept open had quietly closed behind them. I stood, picked up my bag, and said just one more thing before walking out. "By the way, he messaged you. I didn't read it, but I hope whatever he wrote was worth the wreckage." As I stepped outside, the night air hit different. It didn't feel like freedom. Not yet. Felt like silence. But for once, it was mine. 3 days later, the house was still too quiet, but in a different way. Not heavy, not suffocating, just still. Her closet stood half empty. The drawers were missing the mess of makeup brushes and perfume samples she used to scatter like breadcrumbs of control. Her keys were gone from the hook by the door, and the us she used to weaponize that finally left with her. She sent me a message the night she left. Just one line. "Maybe I was never ready to be loved the way you did." I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because I was done wasting words on someone who heard them like background noise. I thought I'd feel broken. Instead, I felt anew. There was no dramatic showdown, no courtroom fireworks, just silence, boundaries, and paperwork. She didn't fight. Maybe because she knew she'd already lost. Or maybe because, deep down, she realized I wasn't the doormat she thought I'd always be. I started doing the small things again, making my own coffee, walking Finley twice a day instead of one. I even signed up for a woodworking class, something she once called a waste of time for a man my age. Funny how the things people mock are often the things that save us. And one night, out of pure habit, I walked by the mirror in the hallway, the one she insisted we hang. I looked at myself differently for the first time in years. Not like a failure, not like a man someone walked away from, but like someone who'd finally stopped begging for scraps at a table he built himself. So yeah, I wanted her attention. I asked for it with nothing but honesty and heart. She told me to earn it. In the end, I did. Just not from her. That's the end of Heron's story. A quiet man who finally stood up, not with shouting, but with certainty. Now it's your turn. Have you ever asked someone for something simple and been made to feel small for it? Tell us in the comments below what moment from this story hit you the hardest. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions.